Welcome to the AJ Brown Show, where we talk about all things investing, options trading, and the like. Now, here's your host, AJ, whose primary mission in life is to help you become a better investor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very happy post Thanksgiving. This is the AJ Brown Show. My name is Cyprian Francis, and with me, as always, Mr. AJ Brown. Today is November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving, episode 212. AJ, how was your holiday?
I mean, I we had a friendsgiving. I talked a lot. My voice is raspy because of it. Uh, you know, I sit around at home just playing all the time, but I don't talk to anybody. So when you go out and you have a festive time with friends, you come back with a raspy voice.
And it was a festive time with friends. It was at a festive time with the markets this week. I know last
Yeah,
week specifically, we were talking about this big major pullback, being one of the bigger ones of the year.
yeah.
Looking at the charts all this week, it's like no news is good news, and we've started to make that up. What are you making of this week? Is anything driving our short rally here? Um,
Yeah.
from your perspective.
Yeah. It's the Fed. The Fed came back just the beginning of this week. We had the Fed president from San Francisco, and she agreed with the Fed president from New York. If you remember when we met last week in here with the AJ Brown show, we talked about that Fed president in New York on Friday morning, talking about how he thinks that employment and weakening employment was justifying a Fed rate drop in less than 2 weeks now. And so she came back and echoed that. Yeah, that combined with Trump seems to be hinting at who he's going to, um, nominate for Fed president in May when Jerome Powell's term is done, and he's nominating, of course, a Trump loyalist who believes that low interest rates are the way to go. And so investors are just jumping on that.
And I see we have the VIX pulled up, a nice
Hmm.
little back under that average. Every time I see it get close to like 16, 17, I'm like, oh, we must be in good spirits all over again. And then I start thinking about when's AJ's VIX trade going to trigger to the upside again. But I guess the two are working with each other in that the risk is starting to come off or come back on again through the VIX, and then led by positive sentiment from the Fed. Um, and I guess we are in a holding pattern on your VIX trade here, but it is looking juicy again, is it not?
Yeah. So I just threw the indicator on that we use to determine when to put the VIX trade on. In case anybody wants to be reminded on that, I'll pull it right up. It's a fast MACD indicator, and it's on the closing price. So we're waiting to see one of those light blue arrows come one of these evenings, and then we'll try to apply our VIX trade, the next day. And so that's exactly right. When the VIX comes down, it means anxiety is coming down and confidence is coming up. And so that usually is accompanying risk on in the markets, meaning, when confidence is getting higher and anxiety is getting lower, people start to invest in the equities market again. And so that's exactly what we're seeing. Although it seems to be capping out now that today, as you can see, uh, last Friday, Monday, Tuesday were all beautiful S bar days. And then, Wednesday and today seem to be subdued. So I maybe we're peaking out at where how high we're going to go. I'm not sure. I've learned to not pay any attention to patterns and just look at the day by day, but it does look like we are starting to peak out.
Yeah, and it's a very nice reversal from what we were looking at on Friday. I'm curious
Absolutely.
if we touched any of those levels that we also touched on last week, which were,
Let's
I
take a
guess
look.
you have your rainbow chart that usually kind of helps us with that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we are still we as of November 20th, that was our last bottom. We did get two tests of descending support and two tests of descending resistance, which means officially our new trend has matured. Um, the last trend we were on just barely matured before it switched again. And depending on where this move goes, SIP, the one that we're currently in other words, how high do we go? This one could actually switch on us again right after maturation. So I'm not putting much confidence on a freshly matured trend because, I mean, you can see right here, ever since, what is this, September 25th, we started changing trends about every, you know, month and a half. So if we have yet another trend change, that's going to just reinforce my position that we're in a sideways, choppy, undecided market. Um, but yeah, so let's look at that rainbow graph and see some of these thresholds. So the first threshold that we need to be aware of is this 68.50.92, right? So 68.50 if you want to round it out. If we trade and close above 68.50, then what I just said is going to happen. A close above 68.50 is telling us that the trend is going to change directions again in such a short amount of time, and so many trend change directions again in an abbreviated amount of time. That just means a lot of sideways chop. If we don't get a close above 68.50 before we start heading down, then this sentiment that we had last week about being, somewhat in a downtrend is going to reinforce as well. But I have a feeling that a lot of sideways chop, and also the fact that we got up above this 67.30, this magenta zone, which would be more of that ideal downtrend, that more of that ideal trend reversal down. If we reverse now without getting above 68.50, we reversed in this red zone. So all of this just reinforces sideways chop.
And with sideways chop, that's when some of your premium selling strategies and some of your option strategies start to
Some,
become,
how about
or all of them,
most? Yeah,
most of them.
like everybody's still coming to me. I just, had a one-on-one with a client a couple days ago, and she's like, I got to learn more of these directional strategies. And I'm like, not right now, you don't. I'm like, right now, you need to be trading sideways chop. Anybody who's trading directional strategies right now is having a difficult time and they're losing a lot of money. The chance, the probability that a directional strategy is going to result in a winning trade is so low right now because the market is screaming at us as investors. The market is saying, please trade me as sideways chop. Don't trade me directionally. If you trade me directionally, I'm going to hand your butt to you on a plate.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 68.50, which I think psychologically is just like a really good level to kind of, establish itself. And then I look at the calendar today being, November 20th, with 1 month left in the year, and then expanding out our returns on an annual basis, and kind of putting the psychology hat on of like, do we really have the legs to kind of break to these new highs here as we head into the new year, or we get to kind of bounce around? And if so, what do I do as an investor? And I think that's when some of those premium selling and option selling strategies that maybe viewers aren't aware of start to make a little bit more sense. But I
On
see we,
January 2nd, SIP, we opened at 5903. So let's just say 5900. And it looks like, I mean, I don't know where we're going to end on January or December 31st this year, but 5900 to 6840. If I pull up my calculator really quick, 6840 minus, what did I say? 5900, 59. Yeah.
yeah, 5900.
5900 is $940. About a 16% increase for the year. I mean, we count on roughly about a 7% increase in the S&P every year, um, you know, averaged out. So we're above average big time. Now, whether that's sustainable or not, I've seen a whole bunch of different models for 2026. Some of them say, we're in for sideways chop, if not a little bit of a recession. Other models say we're going to gain another 15%. I mean, and the fact that we don't have very good data right now, um, I think we just play it day by day.
Yeah, and that's why I think the VIX trade starts to make a lot more sense as you look at it, every 2 or 3 weeks, because it seems to be that's kind of been your cadence of putting that
Mhm.
on, and yeah, I feel like there's such a correlation with just the market moving up and then the volatility. I mean, we can even see it here with these spikes, but similarly, we had a run up, but at the same time, the run down has been kind of, gradual as well. We're not talking about 1 day spikes here. Um,
No, we're definitely not. So, and you can see that our reversal here was actually not only below the reversal from November 6th. It actually, I drew this yellow line here. Let me zoom in for you guys because I know you're probably squinting on your screens right now. But our reversal right here on November 20th dipped down to two lows below the October 10th low. So, I can't emphasize this enough. We love our option strategies because they allow us to profit on many other patterns besides just an appreciating market or a depreciating market. This sideways chop, if you haven't changed the tools that you're using to profit off of sideways chop, if you're still trying to profit off of ascending or descending trends, it's going to become super difficult for you, if not already. I'm already hearing these stories of people who are just losing their trades left and right. And our premium selling trades, going back and relying on the fact that time is very consistent. Time continues to go by, even if the market is stuck in a sideways channel. Let's profit off of that. Let's get into the business of selling those options to equity holders that are now hedging their positions because they don't know if the market is going to go up or down.
and I feel like this most recent run up is not just equities. I know that Bitcoin has been running up. I know that
Yep.
gold is running up. Are any of these other
Gold is
asset
getting more
classes
exciting again.
catching your attention? And then I did want to ask you if any economic news for the week, caught your attention other than the Fed president's basically saying, yeah, we might be willing to cut because of employment.
Yeah. So gold caught my attention again because gold is edging back up to all-time highs again. So we're at 42.35. We peaked in October at 43.50. So we're about $100 under that. So whenever I see gold going towards new highs, I know that investors are taking a good portion of their portfolio out of risky trades. Even though we're seeing the market run up, when you see gold run up at the same time, it's because people are ready to bail at a moment's notice. So I noticed that, and then I also noticed simultaneous to that, this whole run up in Bitcoin, Bitcoin was bottoming out. Bitcoin was bottoming out at about $85,000. Now it's back up to $92,000. So whenever I see a run up in Bitcoin, I know there's this weird dichotomy that people are taking their money out of options, which are like short-term hedges. They're putting it back into equities, but they're also taking a portion of their money, putting it into Bitcoin, and then also protecting themselves with precious metals. So you're seeing this kind of diversification across the board, Sip. But when I see money going back into the equities, back into Bitcoin, I know risk is on. But then you see simultaneously money going into gold, and you're like, risk is on with a little bit of a backstop.
And then the last chart that we usually like to cover is the Fed funds expectation.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
that I think it's always important to see what the sentiment is there.
Yeah. So let's see. We're at 87%.
But 87% cut.
87% chance or probability at a cut. 13% is, as you can see right here, maybe you can or you can't. Let me circle it for everybody. The current rate that the Fed has set is 3.75 to 4%. So keeping it there at 3.75 to 4% is this 13.1. But this is dropping at another quarter point rate drop. And so that's an 87% chance. And if we look down here, it was lower just yesterday. Yesterday it was 83%. A week ago it was 71%. Now remember, it did this whole thing where we had the government shut down, and then we had a bunch of Fed presidents and Jerome Powell saying, we're flying blind. We have no data. And so what do you do? And I remember the analogy when he had his last press conference. He's like, when things get really foggy, you can't see that far on the road ahead. What do? You slow down and you make slower decisions. And he was hinting at that time at, a rate drop. And so, the chance or the probability of a rate drop, or he was hinting at not a rate drop, he was hinting at rates staying the same. And so this number went down. It went down below 50%. I think at one point it was even down at like 30%. But if you remember, before the government shutdown, so a month ago, the government shutdown was just a week or so in, they still thought he was going to do a rate drop. So it was like 91%. So do I think there's still going to be a quarter point rate drop? Yes, I do. Did I ever think that there wasn't? There was a chance, but I think it's back on. And I got to throw one more piece of data at you, Sip, and that is my all favorite consumer confidence numbers that were released on Tuesday. We take a look at this. Now, this is not from the government. This is from, a third party. It's from the Conference Board. And I think I told you that I have rarely seen this number below 100. In the 30 plus years that I've been investing, I rarely see this number below 100. Since April, with all of this announcement around tariffs, this number did dip below 100, and it stayed below 100. So that's unusual. But man, this time around, to see it drop below 90, we're at 88.7. The last time I saw it this low was on April, when we announced, that Tariff Liberty Day or whatever we called it. And so consumer confidence, I mean, this is a leading indicator and all, but this is often a hint that, because without the consumer, markets collapse. You have to have somebody to buy the goods that people are making. So to see consumer confidence not only below 100, but down at 88.7. And this is for November. Um, I think something's amiss, Sip.
Yeah, over the weekend, over the week as I was browsing social media, there were a lot of posts about how expensive shopping for Thanksgiving was. Very, very
Mhm.
specific. I mean, there was a multitude of examples of mac and cheese, being overpriced and this and that. And I guess it begs the question of, we haven't had reports for 2 months. I guess if we
Mm.
start to get some inflation reports versus the employment reports, maybe that kind of will, shake out some of this data that you're seeing from the consumer confidence a little bit more diligently, I suppose. But
Yeah.
something that, I guess we got to play catch up with all the economic reports, because we're going to
Yeah.
start to get them back. The reports,
All the
coming out.
economic reports that we're getting right now are for September, which is like old news. We're not getting anything. So even though the back in force, I don't know if folks realize this, but the department of the government that is in charge of creating these data reports have both been doged. And, there was that whole controversy where the president didn't like the numbers that this department was generating, asked the lead of that department to step down. And so now there's a question of confidence behind these numbers. Are they being cooked? Are they being cooked now versus then? Even, or, because the president was saying, oh, those numbers are cooked, we're going to put somebody in place. But a lot of folks, the taco trade and a lot of the where you hype something up and then it doesn't, like this whole Ukraine peace deal that was supposed to happen on Thanksgiving Day and then got pushed and pushed. And then you're looking at the Gaza peace deal and how, even though there's supposedly a peace deal in place, Israel is not letting reporters in and there's still airstrikes. So is the war really over? So, there's a lot of confidence and it goes both ways. Some people are more confident now, but you know, the I'm making a short story long. The short story is the data is still very gray.
Yeah, and it seems as if that AI bust that we had for maybe a couple days is subdued a little bit.
Yeah.
I did see an interesting news blurb that Google's getting into the chip making to compete with Nvidia, so that was kind of like a
Yeah.
big news maker this week. Um, but yeah, otherwise, holiday weeks, no news, I guess, is good news this week. And we'll keep the party rolling here.
Mhm.
We do have some trending topics in the world and in this part of the show, which we like to call the morning sip. We'll bring you a little bit of pop culture, AJ. So I don't know if you were watching any of the news blurbs yesterday, but this video here is starting to go a little bit viral. But JD Vance was feeding soldiers, and his daughter, I guess the quote here is, JD's daughter is out serving the troops for Thanksgiving like a pro. And JD Vance basically says she's insisted that you take the butter. She's very serious about her job. So here's JD's Vance's daughter being very serious about her job of distributing butter to the Thanksgiving patrons. Here we go. Very serious. Please take your butter, everybody. Take your butter. So that one's making the rounds. And before the show, AJ, you and I were kind of chatting about this, but this one's from Barstool Sports, uh, asking the question of basically, do you have alcohol at your Thanksgiving? And AJ, you and I agreed that we are of the kind that brings alcohol to
You betcha.
Thanksgiving and is part of the tradition. And so I'm curious, have you heard the debate of bringing alcohol versus not bringing alcohol? Because this was like a northern southern thing, where in the South they don't do it, but in the North they very much do.
You know, To each their own, but I wouldn't be able to enjoy my Thanksgiving without a couple of cocktails.
Yeah, and one of the examples was like he was like, if I brought beer, if I brought a 6 pack to my Thanksgiving dinner, everybody would be whispering about it. Everybody would be gossiping about it. And in my mind, I'm like, if you don't bring the 6 pack, everyone's
Right?
gonna be like, hey, what are what are you showing up with?
That's
Um,
right.
so I'm glad that I guess we would be considered the Northerners that like to always have some special sauce on hand while we're digging into the festivities. Okay, we got three for today, so I'm gonna keep the party rolling. And this one's interesting because I'd love your take. Yesterday, President Trump gave one of his, one-off press conferences wherever he was at, and basically came out with the statement that Trump has said his administration may drastically reduce or even eliminate income tax in the coming years, claiming tariff revenue would cover the loss. Critics argue tariff revenues would ultimately raise consumer prices. What is your take? Does that make sense to you, AJ? I would love to find a way to lower income taxes, but do we could we theoretically make enough money with tariffs to get rid of income taxes, and what would that do for our economy? What are your thoughts?
Well, so tariffs, as we know, are paid. They're paid by companies who bring things in from other countries, right? And then the company either eats it or takes it out of their own profit, or more likely passes the cost on ultimately to the consumer. And right now, depending on which economists, even some of the most partisan economists, one way or the other, it's anywhere from 50% to 80% of the price is being passed on to the consumer. In other words, tariffs are kind of a sales tax, if you will. Um, Income is another type of tax. I mean, the government is going to need money to run, right? They provide services, whether it be, Social Security, or they provide services to the people that the people otherwise wouldn't pay for themselves. So they need money. So the question is how do you decide, uh, you know, what how the government makes money. So now that we've gotten clear on that question, um, do you do a sales tax or do you an income tax? The thing that happens is whether you say, for instance, you're worth $10 million, you're still going to buy uh, $300 worth of groceries a week. And if you're worth $30,000, you're probably, because you're a human being, going to need $300 worth of groceries a week. So they're saying that a tariff is more balanced, or it winds up taxing people with lower income at a greater percentage of their wealth than people of higher income, because people of higher income, they may eat higher quality foods, they may put super unleaded in their car instead of regular unleaded, so they may pay a little extra, but they're not going, there's a you only consume so much more as a human being. So, I'm not sure I sign on to the idea that tariffs are better than income tax. I might disagree with our president on that, because I think that, the scoop is that's kind of, you know, overtaxing, the people. I think people with lower incomes would then get taxed more than people with higher incomes, and that doesn't seem right to me. Um, so I don't, and I don't see based on how much it costs the government to run versus how much we've collected in tariffs this year. I don't see how tariffs alone can fund the government. So I don't see how it's possible. I think it's another one of those
things that Trump says in order to get attention, but probably won't come to fruition. What are your thoughts?
I mean, every week it's a grand idea. You know what? Me and the guys at the White House, me and the team at the White House have been thinking, it's time to get rid of income taxes. And it's just
Yeah.
like what's gonna be the talking point next week.
I
But
mean,
I think
do you remember the whole discussion around the year 2000 on a flat tax?
not really, no.
John McCain was running as for president in the year 2000. He was going up against George W. Bush, and George W. Bush won the primary. But one of John McCain's talking points was a flat tax, which is still an income tax, but everybody pays the same amount, whether you're rich or poor. So it's not really an income graduated tax, but it was a flat tax. And again, that also you might have been able to figure out how better to cover the costs of the government, because again, I think the shortfall in tariff, incomes is going to be a problem. You can't just have tariffs. But the flat tax also got a lot of scrutiny back then because rich people would not get taxed as much of their income as poor people. So, I think that there's going to be a lot of pushback against any sort of flat tax or sales tax that affects everybody equally, the rich and the poor. I think there's a lot of momentum in the country right now, where people are like, hey, I'm poor. I thought I'd be better off. I'm not better off. And you're seeing a lot of people migrating over to like the Bernie bro line of the aisle. So I think that politicians, especially ones that speak directly to the people, whether it's through video or through social media, need to start paying attention to the masses, because we're still, as far as I know, in a democracy where everybody is in charge of voting for who's next. So you almost want to please everybody. You don't want to just do your own thing. I think you have to remember, if you're a politician, and again, I know nothing about this shit, and I would never want to be a politician, but I think you have to remember that in our country, in the United States, you're on loan. We hire you and you're on loan. You're not it's not like you're an oligarch in Russia or in China or in the Gulf states with their monarchies. You're kind of on loan. So you got to please the people who hired you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that recent discussion comes from the new mayor elect in New York having some of
Oh
these
my gosh. Did you see
socialist.
that press conference?
Oh, it was hilarious. In a way, that's where I start to have more respect for Donald Trump, because he is one of the few politicians that can go head to head and have a battle and insult each other, and then the very next day shake each other's hands and be like, you know what, it's okay, I take it back, you said some things, I said some things, let's make New York great again. And I'm like, very few politicians are that refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I was touching on was the masses, and like you were saying, I am seeing a lot of stats where the younger generation, the teens, the early 20s, they're the ones that are
Disenfranchised.
yeah, are and one of the quotes that I saw is, they've been getting screwed by capitalism. And I'm like, that's a very good way to look at it, because in a way, they're the ones that are spending so much for college educations and stuff. There was a video that went viral this week of a Princeton Princeton graduate who couldn't get a job outside of being like a dishwasher or something. And he was like, I thought I paid all this money to go to this Ivy League school and I thought I'd get a job. And so you are starting to see some of that data and rhetoric coming. So, maybe there is something to be done to kind of level the playing field for all of us to enjoy capitalism. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is America. And if you really want to put your mind to something, hop on the AJ Brown Show, open up an options account and start trading some premium, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right, folks. We'll keep the party going. We got our special Thanksgiving episode. Oh, quick shout out to Wayne, real quick, because he basically said, "Bring a 6-pack. Don't be a freeloader." Wayne, I think we're all in line, and you would definitely be invited to our Friendsgiving event. Okay, we've got AJ's pick of the week. We've got our speed round. We've got the markets. I think it's a half day today, right?
Yeah, they're going to be closing at 1:00 Eastern New York City time.
Market's closing soon. Everyone's going to be hopefully turning on that Black Friday prime international game between the Chicago Bears and the Eagles, and then getting prepped for the start of a new month next Monday. So we're going to take a quick break here, folks. Sit tight, and we'll dig into some examples and try and find some ways to get you guys some return on those portfolios. So sit tight, folks. We'll be back.
Yep.
I get it. You're afraid of trading in the markets. Guess what? I've got your answer. I've got 4 strategies I'm going to give you along with the tools to make it super easy. I'm going right home, giving you the webinar. I need you to sign up below and meet me in a few minutes.
All right. Real quick, before we dig into AJ's pick of the week, I did throw the link to AJ's quick links in the chat. So I know that we referenced that free indicator suite, so you can get access there. And then if you're new to options trading, new to Trading Trainer, new to this type of investing, there's this free workshop right here. That's a really good introductory video session to get you started with some of these. I think it's 4 initial strategies to get your premium selling strategy technique in order. Also, we've got some custom coaching. We've got more about Trading Trainer as a whole, the program, and then we've got all of our socials. So you always find the goodies here, but this free indicator suite is definitely something that you'll get value out of right away. So head on over there, get that integrated into your charts so that you can start to follow along with us. Okay, digging into your pick of the week. This is an interesting name, but you're liking Ring Central, ticker symbol RNG. This is, I believe, like a telecommunications company where you can call and text and manage those types of things for small businesses. So what do you like in the setup here for Ring Central?
And they're totally going AI. So there's a little this becomes an AI play specifically for phone answering and things like that. So I like that there's a bottom that has formed. In fact, I got follow through on Tuesday, but it looks like people can still jump in. I did a trade plan on this, and folks that are part of my program, about this. We have a tested line of support around $26. Now, a lot of people sip, they'll look at the option chain, and we can come over here to our options lookup tool right here in our website. And those of you that sign up for the free indicator, you'll get this options tool. It's still in beta, but for the time being, you can still get access to it. I think sometime in December that might change, but get in there now. The scoop is when I pull up Ring and I look at some options that are 3 to 6 months out. So I'm going to look at the April. You'll notice that they have a very traditional options expiration and options strike price increments, right? 25, 30, below $25, they go every $2.50. Above $25, they're every $5. And that scares people. A lot of people will not even touch it. And I think if you just blanketly say, I'm not going to do anything that has traditional option strike prices, I'm only going to do things, you could be leaving some opportunities on the table. And the reason is, and I think it's a case by case basis, Ring Central if we use the 25 and the 30, it seems to be surrounding our price action perfectly. So in this case, it doesn't matter that the increment is traditional, it fits. So I want everybody to not just discount a whole group of equities because you look at the strike prices, or it doesn't have the ability to do diagonal debit spreads on it, or whatever is your objection in your head. Evaluate each symbol and each potential trade on a case by case basis. And in this case, it works. So I would say if you haven't gone long on Ring, or if you want to paper trade this just to see if what I'm talking about works, you would go long. You'd buy the stock in lots of 100 shares, or I could see buying the Ring July $15 calls. Those Ring July $15 calls are like a perfect option substitute, only they're like half the price. So if you want to include a little bit of leverage in there, you can use a substitute. And then we're just going to wait and see how high it goes. And I'm expecting it to kind of peter out somewhere between $30 and $32. If it goes higher, great. And at that point, I'll decide whether I'm selling the 30 or the 35 option. If it just continues to go higher, then we'll collar at the point where it reverses. But this is really a good symbol that a lot of people are passing up because of that traditional options chain. Sip, I want to draw attention to this one.
Yeah, and then you mentioned AI, so that always has somewhat of a spark to it, depending on
Mhm.
what the flavor of the week is. But from a product perspective, I see Ring Central as definitely one of the leaders in the space. So I like your pick here. And I think some of the fundamentals back it up as well. So this one is a great one to add to the hot list, everybody.
Yep.
All right, so that's AJ's pick of the week. Ring ticker symbol RNG. We've got a couple names in our speed round. AJ, people want to get back to their turkey. They want to get back to their drinking, but we've got some names that people want to know your input on. So we'll start with Andrew out of Trenton, New Jersey, who wants to know: is there a play in Goodyear Tire? Ticker symbol GT. The boringest of the boring names, rubber.
Yeah. Goodyear Tire 2 earnings ago really got kicked in the teeth, didn't they? And I've been telling folks to hold off on Goodyear Tire since then to see what sort of channel. Now, Goodyear Tire likes to go horizontal. In other words, the investors of Goodyear Tire, they love, they're okay with it going horizontal. They're not investing in the company necessarily for asset appreciation. So I've been waiting to see what happens. Goodyear Tire for about a month and a half consolidated, broke out down, found a level of support at this new, and I love the price that it's trading at, roughly around $7. And then they've been heading up, and it looks like we're heading towards around $8 or $9. Here's my thoughts. If I get a top signal anywhere below even $10, we call this a falling window. Anywhere below, let me change that. Let me make it $9. If I see a bottom reversal or a top reversal happening at $9 or lower, I could see an argument to short Goodyear Tire. So when I say short Goodyear Tire, I mean either short the stock and do that in increments of 100 shares of stock, or look for a deep in the money, far out in time put option that you could buy that will be a perfect substitute to a shorted stock. And use that options lookup tool that we have available for free to find that substitute option. If it goes above that, I think I'd hold off. If it goes above $9 before it starts to reverse, let's let Goodyear Tire kind of continue to find its legs, continue to find its levels of support and resistance before we start trading this.
Awesome. Goodyear Tire, definitely a name that we've covered a handful of times over our 212 episodes.
Yes.
One of those boring consumer names that kind of definitely falls in its range and stays out of the headlines.
Yes.
So thank you for bringing this one up, Andrew. Hopefully that was helpful. Moving on to our second name, probably one of our most popular brought up names, and that's Sierra out of Salt Lake City, Utah, wants to know what's going on with Bath and Body Works, BBWI, a name that we've had positions, or setups on a handful of times.
We did for about 6 or 7 months there. But then around September, around October, it started to peter out on us, and people were wondering what to do then. And the answer is, if you're in it long, you either want to use your stop loss order or you want to use your protective option or both, and you want to start hedging yourself. And so you're in one of two places right now. You're either with a protective option, and in that case, even though that initial stock purchase or that call option that was far out in time and deep in the money was working against you, the protective call was working for you. And that protective call is probably worth a pretty penny right now. We got a signal last night in order to get rid of that protective call, that protective put, and take your profit on it. But I'm not seeing that we're getting follow through today. So do wait until you get your follow through signal before you actually liquidate that protective put. Or you got stopped out, and that's fine because all the premiums that you collected up to now, you're probably very much at profit. And if you've done both, if you got stopped out of Bath and Body Works and you have a protective put in place, you're stoked right now because this is one of those cases where you're not losing money on one trade, but you are gaining money on the protective option. So, in our program, we talk about the nuances of those three different exits: the stop loss, the protective, and then the stop loss and the protective together. Hopefully, you're in the position where you've got the stop loss and the protective together. As far as new trades, I wouldn't open any new trades on Bath and Body Works right now until it matures into a sideways trend. What is our definition of a mature trend? 2 tests of support, 2 tests of resistance. Don't jump the gun.
I would probably also take a look at any of the fundamentals here, seeing as it is a retailer and those tend to kind of be all over the place in this day and age. So you might want to know what they're doing on the business side of things before you get into something a little bit longer. But that's AJ's breakdown, and we appreciate it. All right, moving on to our third and final name in our speed round. This is Brian out of Huntsville, Alabama. Wants to know what's going on with Mara Holdings, ticker symbol MARA, another name that we've touched on the show a handful of times.
Yeah, Mara is a tech company. Let me just verify. I got to remember what they're up to. I think are they in crypto? Let's see.
I believe they were some sort of a digital agency or something.
Mara, digital asset compute that develops and deploys technology. The company secures the blockchain ledger and supports energy transformation by converting clean, standard, or other underutilized energy into economic value. Data centers. I think Mara Holdings has a lot of different smaller companies, but they're in the data center world. They're in blockchain world. They're in the powering the data centers with clean energy world. So, okay, let's take a look at the chart. So supposedly Mara found a bottom. They found a bottom on Monday. I haven't seen follow through to that bottom yet. Remember, I'm an end of day trader. So when I get my signals, the market's already closed. And so then the next days, I put a conditional or contingent. It depends on your brokers. Some brokers call it a conditional trade. Others call it a contingent trade, whatever. I put one of those trades on and I see if it fills. And it's called getting the follow through. I don't see that I've gotten the follow through since I got that end of day signal. So I'm wondering, are you trying to buy some of this stock? If so, I'd say wait for the signal. And then, we had a level of tested resistance around $14, tested support. And obviously we've dipped down to $10. So the question is how high will it go? So if you decide to go long Mara, I would say you're going to have to play it by ear. Wherever it reverses is where you want to put your collar. And when I say collar, I'm talking about doing a near-term at-the-money option sell and then simultaneously doing a 3 to 6 month out of the money protective option purchase. So usually you can get those to offset each other. And by putting that collar in place, you've just made a twofer income trade. But, generally when we plan out these trades, we have a good idea where there's support and resistance, and we can predict, where we want to sell our premium and buy our protection. Can't do it here, so you're going to have to play it by ear. This is a more advanced premium trade, but I could see you getting in here and working it. But let's not even buy the initial covering position until we get follow through to our signal that came on Monday. So play this one easy. If you're new to premium selling, why don't you try paper trading this to see if you can do these advanced strategies? It's all skill building. A lot of people think you can jump right into trading, especially you watch one episode of the AJ Brown show. AJ Brown does something magic. He gives you a red pill or a blue pill and you take it and now you're a premium trader. It's actually not true. You have to go through the paces. And the best way to do that is in a paper trading log. So for this one, I'd say, sharpen your skills, get additional skills doing something you haven't done before. Paper trade this. I think you can make it work. Any questions, send us a question through our support tab. We'll be glad to give you some coaching on it.
Yeah, I mean, a swing from 23 down to 10 in about a month and a half. There's definitely something going on with this company. If not, it's just kind of latching onto the overall markets a little bit.
A lot of correlation going on.
All right, that completes our speed round, and that, I would imagine, brings us close here to the end of our special Thanksgiving episode of the AJ Brown Show. AJ, did for the cooking yesterday, was it a standard plate for you guys? Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, corn?
Yeah. Some of you might know, but I've been a pescatarian, which means I just eat seafood and vegetables since 2008. And before that, I was a vegetarian since 1991. So for me, it was a big slab of salmon. But yes, I had all that good stuff. And my wife got a huge batch of organic cranberries. Now, what the frick do you do with cranberries? Well, I boiled them down and I actually made a really luscious curd and put it into a tart. And that was like the star of the show. and I had extra cranberries, so I made like a shrub syrup, and that shrub syrup mixed with a lot of gin was like the cocktail. So we had a lot of really happy dessert and cocktail drinkers at our house. So that's really what we did on Thanksgiving. Did you go crazy in the kitchen?
No, I actually went crazy Wednesday night when I, celebrated the infamous you go out and you hang out with friends the night before Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
my Thanksgiving day was pretty much just watching football, and then preparing for, today's game, because I am excited to be heading to the Cosm. Have you ever heard of the Cosm?
No.
It's like kind of like an IMAX where they have this giant dome and you sit there and it's so close to you that it almost feels like you're at the field. So I'll send you some photos, but it kind of like the Sphere in Vegas. You
Yeah.
know what I'm talking, but it's like kind of a mini version of that. They have one here in LA, and it's a big Bears Eagles day. And the other cool thing is they're actually broadcasting that game internationally. So everyone around the world who has Prime can watch today's game, which is, kind of rare for my European friends who don't ever watch the NFL. Today's a good chance to get access to watching one of the best teams in the league, in my opinion, but the Chicago Bears, who knows? Otherwise, thank you, AJ, for taking some time today. It sounds like you had quite an adventure, quite a day yesterday. And thank you to everyone for joining us as usual. We truly do appreciate it. Once again, the access to all of AJ's goodies can be found here on our quick links page, which you can find in the chat. Show some love, hit that like, hit that follow, hit that subscribe button on your favorite social platform. Get access to that free indicator suite. Check out the free workshop if you haven't already. And if you're not already a member of our beautiful, wonderful conglomerate of trading minds, head on over, join the program, and get some exclusive access to behind the scenes stuff that you don't get to see here on the AJ Brown Show. And with that, folks, I think it's going to be kind of everyone enjoy the weekend, and then we'll reset starting next week as we start to get some more economic data. We try and close out the year, the last month of the year. Final words, parting words, AJ?
No, yeah, this was the last day of November. So we come back on Monday. It's December 1st. So we have the last month of the year. We'll see how it plays out.
All right, folks. Truly do appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning into the AJ Brown Show. If you're interested in learning more about AJ and his investing techniques, head on over to tradingtrainer.com and create your free account today. And if you're not already a subscriber to the show, hit that subscribe button and we'll get you fresh content daily.